Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadhari. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radhamadhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radhamadhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupat Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotarasata Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Granthara Shiman Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonum, Chapter 60, Krishna teases Queen Rukmini, text number 22 and 23. Iti lokesha patitas manaha. Iti trilokesha patestadatmana. Prijasya devi asuta purvanga priyam. Asrutya pita hridijata bepathus. Chintanduram tanrudati jagamaha. Iti tilokesha pateshtadatmana. Prijasya devya sruta purvang apriyam. Asrutya bitta hridijata bepathus. Chintanduram tanrudati jagamaha. Iti triloke shapates tadatmana Priyasya devya purvanga priyam Asrutya bhita hridijata pathus Chintam duram tam rudati jagamaha. Please chant. Iti triloke shapates tadatmana Priyasya devya sutapurvan Iti dos triloka of the three worlds Isha of the Lords Patehe of the Master Taada then Atmanaha of our own Priyasya beloved Devi the goddess Rukmini Ashruta never heard Purvam previously Apriyam unpleasantness Asrutya hearing Bhita frightened Hridi in her heart Yata born Bepatu trembling Chintam anxiety Duramtam terrible Rudati sobbing Jagamaha she experienced Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Goddess Rukmini have never before heard such an unpleasantries from her beloved, the Lord of the universal rulers, and she became frightened. A tremor arose in her heart, and in terrible anxiety she began to cry. Text number 23. Pada sujate nanakaruna sriya bhuvan likantya shubhir anjana shitai asinchati kunkumarish rushitaostanao tas tashav tastad adomu kyati dukharudabak. Translation: with her tender foot effulgent with the reddish glow of her nails, she scratched the ground, and tears darkened by her eye makeup sprinkled her kumkuma reddened breast. There she stood, face downward, her voice choked by extreme sorrow. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Ramapada Swami Iti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaura Bani Pracharine. Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatyadi Satarine. Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So Srimati Rukmini Devi's symptoms are described in these verses. The reaction that she had upon hearing Krishna's words that in a joking manner were meant to upset her. And Krishna's purpose was to make Rukmini angry. So he spoke in such ways. And it was very unpleasant for her to hear those comments by Krishna, by Lord Krishna. And the reaction was very, very, very disturbed. I mean, her heart became very, very disturbed. Tremor, what is it that it says? She became frightened, and her heart became overcome by this terrible anxiety. And then her physical, their bodily language was, downward, and I mean, it was a very, very difficult reaction. So we have touched throughout, we have heard, throughout the different discussions on this chapter that Krishna's motivation and Krishna's purpose. There's one particular motivation that Krishna has in dealings with his devotees in such way, and in this case with his pure devotees, and it's something that is constantly happens in many situations in Krishna's relationships and pastimes with different a whole varieties of pure devotees of the Lord. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this particular motivation that the Lord has. I mean, it is explained that Krishna is, one of the names for Krishna is Daksha, which is very expert. So with one action, Krishna is able to cover so many different aspects of a. He's able to achieve many things. So when it comes to the relationship with the devotees, Krishna is able to achieve many things of his purposes, um, and just with one action, one of his pastimes. So this particular one we haven't discussed so far, and this is what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains. Having thus spoken to Rukmini, who was thinking herself the dearmost of his queens, out of his intense love, he broke her pride. Because he was constantly with her, she thought that, even though she was unqualified to be his wife, just by her qualities, he had made her his wife. And she became proud that she had such an ocean of good qualities. Though the word bhalava would normally be masculine to agree with atmanam, it remains feminine here to express that she was thinking herself as the dearmost wife. That he destroyed her pride by his joking words is stated later in verse 25. Krishna himself explains this also in his own words in verse 29. So we'll see that as it comes. But this principle of pride, and of course, we have to make a distinction between the pride that these perfect devotees have or manifest and the pride that is manifested in this material world out of the false ego. So there's a great distinction between that, but nevertheless, Krishna consistently deal with devotees regardless the manifestation of pride that is there, if it comes out of intense love, as is explained here by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that Rukmini experienced this pride out of her intense love for Krishna. So one of the aspects of pride is that we feel better than others according to whatever qualities we have or whatever possessions we have. And then we actually claim this sense of possessiveness and right to have these possessions. So, we see that regardless of where is it come from, if it's even out of this intense love or prema that this pride manifests, or if it's out of material conditioning and the false ego, Krishna doesn't like pride. And he sort of, in general, he performed a lila in which he breaks the pride of the devotees. And again, making the distinction in the case of these devotees who are prema bhaktas, the manifestation of pride, that is also an experience of rasa with the Lord. So the Lord experience, there's this experience of ecstasy that at the end is manifested in both the Lord and the devotee. Because the perfected devotees, the prema bhaktas, everything they do, or every manifestation of the psyche is to please Krishna, to give pleasure to Krishna. For a conditioned soul, these manifestations that are conditioned are sort of to maintain the devotee or maintain the conditioned souls, entangled in the material world. So these are the things that are called unwanted or anarthas. And pride is chief among these anarthas. Pride is a huge obstacle in, um, in spiritual life. The fact that when we analyze pride, the opposite of pride is humility. It is explained in the scriptures. And so there's that say in English, what is it? That pride is how's it go? Yes, pride comes before the fall. So, so pride is the biggest obstacle. Because with pride, we embrace the position that I am, Ishvara Ham Bogi. It's a demoniac sort of propensity that I am the controller and I am the enjoyer. It is described in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that describe the demoniac qualities. This pride, Sanskrit term is dambha. Dambha. From that, then other qualities, sort of come down or unfold. So pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature, or Sonuprita. So pride has that very distinct quality that brings down the consciousness, darkness, the consciousness. So for the demoniac, pride is something that almost fuel all the different demoniac activities and demoniac propensities that are in the world. Now, for the devotees, pride becomes a huge obstacle because pride becomes something that also almost like casts some darkness in the path of devotional service. And the fact is that it's something that we have to deal with because in the conditional nature, pride is one of the natural manifestations of the false ego. Because the definition of false ego is this aham mameti principle. I am, and this is mine. So it's a sense of possessiveness, it's a sense of my righteousness, and it's a sense of, I am something important. I am. So pride is a natural manifestation of the false ego. And therefore, if we want to be a devotee, we have to attack pride. It's like, everything is almost designed to break pride, to break the pride. And therefore, Lord Chaitanya tells us that if we want to move on in the process of devotional service, we have to cultivate these natural qualities of humility, which is the opposite of pride. So from pride, all these different things unfold, conceit, arrogance, anger, all the things. From humility, then humility, tolerance, respect, and absence of false ego. These things start to unfold. They're connected, they're related, they're very much part of one package. Humility is not just, oh, you step on me, hit me, it's this sort of low esteem type of thing. I'm humble, yes, humble than a blade of grass, meaning that, please come and step on me type of thing. Or humility goes with all these other qualities together as a package, you know. So we have to cultivate these things in order to be able to practice devotional service or advance in devotional service. So we have to be very much monitoring the every time there's pride. So how do we do that? Well, in our case, say devotees who are trying to progressively advance in Krishna consciousness, we have to constantly monitor our motivations. So when I'm acting and I see, says, why am I doing what I'm doing? So I have to constantly be asking that question, monitoring that. What is my motivation? So if my motivation have to do with, well, because it's my position, I have to do that. I'm controlling this. Who do you know who I am? You must, I demand that you respect me, and that type of thing. So we have to constantly be okay. So why am I doing that? Is it because you know my ego is demanding that, type of acknowledgement, or because I'm serving my spiritual master, you know, I'm serving the deities, I'm serving the devotees. So we monitor our motivations and make sure that, if we perceive anything that could be closer to some pride, then we try to counteract. We try to remind ourselves. My spiritual master say, you always come down and, you know, uh, ground yourself in reality, in the spiritual reality. Our spiritual reality is that we're servants of the servants of the servant. We're servants. And, when the implication of the word servant is you don't feel very proud about it to be a servant. It's a lowly position in the material spectrum like that. But in the spiritual space, it's the highest position to aspire for. In fact, it defines who we are. It's the definition of our essence. So, it's the whole thing is upside down. So we have to monitor that. We have to monitor constantly what my motivations is. And then there's a factor of Krishna helping us with that. Because if we have, Krishna can see the majority of the devotees, they have an honest devotion. The majority of devotees are like that. Especially if you sincerely trying. When you stop to sincerely trying and you get overwhelmed by pride, then you start to go down. But if you sincerely trying, as soon as Krishna detects pride, he does something to expose it and to break it. Something happens that you start to confront with this big obstacle. We're marching like, trun, 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 we're sort of doing our thing, very, how you say, secure and gallant, we can almost hear as we march, the trumpets, ta, 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 announcing our arrival. We have it all under control. And then, boom, we hit this big, big obstacle. Instead of people throwing roses on our path, they start to throw tomatoes on us, rotten tomatoes. And instead of, singing our glories, they start to sing our throw criticism and all that. So then, oh, what do I do? You know. So Krishna puts these situations and okay, how we react. And then we have to, you know, if we're progressive, then usually the devotees, you sort of, you feel that, it happens a lot. It happens to me a lot. You feel, the internal reaction, which is the ego protesting, saying, who the people, you're ready to sort of start to slap people in the face. But, uh, but then the progressive part just reminds you, oh, you know, what's my motivation? What's, you start to internally goes, why? You know. And then also, Krishna makes sure that somehow or other we get guidance. We get something, either from the scriptures or from devotees, from the spiritual master, some inspiration, some understanding. Because the devotee, sincerity, when there's sincerity and you progress, you continually make an effort to progress, then Krishna help us. Krishna exposes something and help us. Now, what happened when you don't accept? You're so overwhelmed by pride that you will never see that your position needs to be corrected. You will never see that. Even if it's fully exposed, it's such a thing. I mean, we've seen it over and over. Sometimes we experience it ourselves, sometimes we see it in other devotees. When they're spiraling down, out of devotional service and in a position of pride, and the whole thing just start to unfold. Arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. The things takes over. It's almost like a darkness cover your heart, and you become overwhelmed by just darkness. And it happens. It happens. And then it becomes more and more difficult as you go down. It becomes more and more difficult to come out of that position of pride. Pride won't allow yourself, even if you're suffering to the max. Pride is such a powerful manifestation of the false ego that even if you find yourself suffering, you won't give up your position of, your conception of righteousness, of, arrogance and that type of thing. You won't be able to concede that you made a mistake. It's quite something. So Krishna doesn't like pride, and he will do things. Now, that's in the level of conditioned souls. Now, when we talk about these perfected devotees, when they manifest pride, and then we can think, okay, why do they manifest pride? If pride is such a thing that is, is favored by demoniac qualities, then why does it manifest on the devotees? And this is, again, comes from, you know, this sense of possessiveness, this sense of this is my right. So the devotees does feel this possessiveness about Krishna. And so when Krishna perceived that, then he also cuts it. And then, so many instances. There's a very nice pastime that have three of such devotees in one pastime taking care. Actually, involved four devotees. And one of them was the one that Krishna uses to teach the other three how to be prideless or to break that pride. And of course, because they're perfected devotees, immediately they recognize, oh, yes, the example of a devotee who will have no pride, and, oh, Krishna has exposed this, then immediately, the devotee recognizes that, and then everything is in place. Again, we hear it in the Rasa Lila dance. Remember, with the Krishna was dancing with each gopi. He expanded himself, and the gopis were feeling proud about, oh, Krishna is only with me. And as soon as they were thinking like that, Krishna disappeared. So we have that example. And then the gopis were in great anxiety because Krishna left them. We have examples with Arjuna. We have examples with so many, but this particular pastime is Krishna dealing with the pride of Sudarshan Chakra and Garuda and Satyabhama, Queen Satyabhama. In the case of Sudarshan Chakra and Garuda, being the constant servants and companions of the Lord, they develop this pride of that they're always with the Lord, and of course Sudarshan is the greatest of all weapons and the favorite weapons of the Lord, and Garuda is a carrier of the Lord. And why Garuda is like that? Because he's so powerful. And so they felt that when it comes to the Lord's protection and the Lord's actions, then they were the ones that the Lord required for that. So they have this thought. And in terms of Queen Satyabhama, she had this, that Krishna, she was a favorite queen of Krishna because her exquisite beauty, because it was the most beautiful, then Krishna favored her. So, so all of them were overjoyed by this feeling of, obviously they were constantly with Krishna. Krishna was constantly with them. So, so the pride, manifested. So, Queen Satyabhama thought like this, the pastime reads like this. Satyabhama thought herself as the most beautiful among all Krishna's queens. Quote, "Why did you take so much trouble to roam around the forest for Sita when she was not as beautiful as me?" Satyabhama asked. And in case of Sudarshan, Sudarshan thought himself to be the most powerful weapon in the universe, as all important tasks were being performed by him. And Garuda thought of himself as the fastest flying bird in all the creation, in addition to his enormous power, which Krishna used on many occasions. So, to settle the issue, Krishna invoked Hanuman, the wife's self-effacing supreme devotee of the Lord in the mood of a servant. Dasa. Hanuman arrived at Dwarka's royal garden and immediately started his trademark activities, jumping from tree to tree, plucking and eating fruits, and breaking twigs and uprooting trees. So he was doing a monkey business when he arrived. Krishna summoned him to Dwarka, and Hanuman immediately come, and he started to do some monkey business. So it was causing a bit of a, ruckus, a bit of a disturbance. So the royal guards and gardeners ran away in fear and informed Krishna. And then Krishna summoned Garuda at once and told him to proceed with all the force of the kingdom to catch the monkey. And then Garuda was incredulous and said, "Why, my lord, why are you asking me to take the army? Do you think I'm not sufficiently powerful to deal with this?" So he was thinking like that. You know, the most powerful. So what is, dealing with a monkey? So you don't need the army. So then Krishna say, "Yeah, okay, just bring me the monkey. Just go." So uh, Garuda came and confronted Hanuman. And so Garuda told Hanuman to surrender immediately and accompany me to meet with Krishna. Krishna, I bring you to Krishna. And then Hanuman retorted, "Why should I surrender? What I have done? It is my monkey nature to jump from tree to tree, eat fruits, break twigs. I have not done anything wrong. Further, I am a devotee of Sri Ram. I cannot meet Krishna." So Garuda told Hanuman, "Surrender immediately and accompany me. Rama and Krishna are the same. Further, you don't know who I am? I am the king of birds, the all-powerful Garuda. I have defeated and killed many powerful demons and demigods with the needle, sharp beak, and talons, or with my sharp, I fly the fastest and generate huge hurricanes with the force of my wings. Just surrender and save your life." Hanuman responded, "I agree with you that Rama and Krishna are the same, but I prefer the form of Sri Ram. I have seen many insignificant birds like you in my life. Don't try to impress me. Save your life from me and better get inside some strong cage." And so the battle ensued, and Hanuman didn't want to really hit Garuda too hard, so he pushed Garuda, and Garuda again went fly off and landed some really, really far place, and Hanuman left. So Garuda he felt like this, almost like this hurricane just hit him and landed him, far, far away and in the ocean. So then, in a very sort of humble, almost he was humble, he came back to the Lord to report that, he couldn't bring the monkey. And he was all wet and all days, like that. And then Lord Krishna says, the follow, what happened? He asked Garuda, you seem to be returning after a good bath in the sea. Krishna remarked. Garuda then narrated of the tremendous strength of Hanuman. Krishna told Garuda to meet Hanuman again, this time at the far away southern mountains of Garuda, where Hanuman went, and tell him that his Lord Ram wants to meet him. So Garuda went, apologized humbly to Hanuman, and conveyed the Lord's message. Hanuman was very pleased that his Lord Ram has called him. He told Garuda, go back, I will reach Ram soon. So Garuda humbly was thinking, that he wanted to take Hanuman, transport him, honor him by taking him on his shoulder, and he can fly, fastest than anything, so he can reach. So, but because Hanuman told him, no, you just go, he, he complied. So he went, Garuda speed, and reached Dwarka in a flash. To his surprise, Hanuman was already there. So he was completely smashing his pride. So, it says, Garuda landed safely at Dwarka, perspiring from the long, tiring fight. But surprise was in store for him. Hanuman has already arrived. His pride of speed and power vanished. So then, Krishna put himself, he dressed in Lord Ramachandra's, he, he, he manifested the form of Lord Ramachandra with arrow, bows, and then he asked Satyabhama to dress like Sita. So she did as Lord Krishna told. And Krishna asked Sudarshan, just guard, you know, he wants to perform this pastime. So please guard the whole entrance of the palace and make sure that no one can enter. So Sudarshan, immediately went and zoom and started to do the Sudarshan thing around the palace. He was circumambulated the palace at great speed and with great power that no one was going to penetrate that. And then it comes Hanuman. And then Hanuman said, that please give an entrance that his Lord Ram has summoned him. So he must see Lord Ram. And Garuda and Sudarshan says, you're not allowed. The Lord won't allow, I have the order that no one enters here, so no one will enter. So Hanuman grabbed Sudarshan and then put it in his mouth. and then off he goes. And he enters the palace and meets with Krishna in the form of Lord Ram. And then he says the following. Hanuman fell at Ram's feet. Ram embraced him. Hanuman brought out Sudarshan from his mouth and released it in the air. And he expressed, it was delaying my meeting with you. So I put it in my mouth. So then Hanuman said, and looked around as he was searching for someone dear to him that he was not seeing. And then he says, I met my Lord Ram in you. Well, where is my mother Sita? And why have you given such honor to an ordinary maidservant here in place of my mother Sita? Questioned in distress Hanuman. So he was pointing at Satyabhama. What is this maiden servant here, receiving honor? Where is my mother Sita? So Satyabhama, Sudarshan, and Garuda all understood the Leela of the Lord in destroying their false pride and ego. They all gratefully praised him for taking the trouble to help the devotees when they became blind with pride and ego. And they also appreciated Hanuman, the humble servitor of Lord Ram, and the greatest icon of the selfless devotee around. Nice, no? Of all the qualities of his devotee that are dear to the Lord, humility is the most dear. So, and then we see that when Krishna tells Arjuna, the first quality of knowledge is humility. And of course, then everything unfolds. So it's something that we have to really, really endeavor to embrace and understand what exactly humility, again, is a package that comes with manifesting tolerance, manifesting respect, and curbing and false ego, the desire to be respected. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It was a nice pastime. I had in a different. This it's like adding to that pastime. Like after this incident happened, so Sudarshan Chakra, when Lord sees that he has got so much pride, so from that time onwards, Sudarshan Chakra was placed in left. We see Jagannath. Usually Sudarshan Chakra is always on the right hand of the Lord
Uh,
from this pastime onwards. So he humbly, accept that punishment from Lord Krishna. Then he shifted to Lord's left hand.
well,
That's why we keep always Sudarshan Chakra and Jagannath left hand,
huh,
not on the right hand.
that's wonderful. Just see, the devotees always,
Yeah.
remain uh, sort of expressing those positions of humility. And sometimes it's even when you hear the Vaishnava acharyas
Yes.
talking about themselves and the way they express about themselves, the expression of humilities are like, Srila um, Krishna Das Kaviraj, lower than the worm in the stool.
Mhm. Correct.
But you see, there's something very important that those expressions comes from a pure heart, and it's a natural expression of, pure humility. Now, in our situation, if we start to do that, and it comes from the motivation, again, when it comes to motivation, the motivation is to bring attention to myself. So we say, "Oh, Prabhu, I'm the most humble. Oh, I'm lower than the whatever," like that. And if it doesn't come from the right motivation, then it becomes a source of disturbance. Prabhupada often will chastise the devotee. There's the example of this devotee just reciting to Srila Prabhupada. Oh, Prabhupada, I am the most humble. And then Prabhupada, and then he was going to continue to saying all the, what his fallen nature is. And Prabhupada say, you're the most of anything, like that, chastising. Yes, bro.
So, thank you for that story. That was amazing. Hanuman, I was thinking how anyone who can take the sun in the hand like an orange, it's got to be so powerful. It seems like, I don't know, if it's correct or not, but it seems like, um, so I guess I could put it in the form of a question, because is it saying that in the spirit of service, when we have service, because I once heard humility, I once heard means that I am a servant of the Lord and I will never be God. It was the meaning, was the true definition of humility that was given to me at one time. I am servant and I will never be God. That is humility. And so, in the spirit of service, does the story mean that when you have, in the spirit of service, you're protected by, Guru Sadhu and Sastra, because you're doing your service, then you're going to be protected, because these different strengths are for protection. Does it have something to do with that?
Mm, yes, what you said is correct. Um, the protection is Krishna's mercy. Krishna is with you and he understands. Now, we still have the free will, we're still making choices. So, if we overcome, in our situation, we're vulnerable. We could be overcome by, by, by unwanted things, by the false ego. So that's why we're so dependent of the activities of purification, because, the activities of purification is what gives the strength. Purity gives us the strength. Purity is the force, Prabhupada explains. So as we become purified, then we gain strength to keep at bay the false ego. But if we don't have that strength, if we're vulnerable, then we can become overcome. And when we become overcome, then all kinds of, obstacles and things comes. And again, it have that type of effect, it's like a spiral down, slowly going down like that. So when that happens, Krishna offered protection. The protection comes in the form of the devotees, the scriptures. Krishna sometimes makes arrangement for the devotee to be exposed, situations that there is, your flared frailties, that's how you say, frailties, become exposed to the world. And then now you're not to be seen as this powerful, or whatever, type of thing. So that's Krishna's protection. Now, in the case of these devotees, their humility never becomes overwhelmed by, never becomes overwhelmed. So these things that appear all manifested, they all simply enhances the loving service to the Lord. So all these pastimes that they manifest pride is only, say for example, the gopis. The pride, Krishna disappear, and their eagerness, to please Krishna and to be with Krishna becomes even greater, the desire. So you have a different effect. And Krishna's protection in this case is that, is in reality this is all lila in their case. It's all for the pleasure of the Lord. But at the same time, they offer these ideals that we conditioned souls can aspire for, of this type of being aware of pride. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, where in the Bhagavatam is that story?
This is not from the Bhagavatam, this is from the Ramayana. Yeah. I can send you a link for that. Yeah. Krishna Archana, do you have any question?
You had explained that, in the case of these very extraordinary devotees, close associates of Krishna, the pride takes the form of identifying with the particular qualities they have and seeing themselves as the possessor of those good qualities. So, the in contrast to those persons in that particular category of, very elevated devotion to Lord Krishna, are persons, are aspirants on the path of Krishna consciousness. So, aspirants on the path of Krishna consciousness may struggle with this concept of respect for themselves as aspirants on the path of Krishna consciousness, because it may not be so much a case of as pride, but rather an expectation that there's a proper atmosphere in which to conduct devotional service, and that proper atmosphere usually does call for a level of respect and I guess respect. So it seems the struggle is very different on the two levels. At least that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So it's not so much a demand for respect, but almost a fundamental need for an environment being such that it's conducive to aspiring on the path of Krishna consciousness, and that environment calls for a mood of respect.
Yeah. I'm thinking like this thing of having all these qualities of humility, tolerance, respect, and absence of false ego as a package that is required for creating that type of atmosphere, not only individually but also collectively. What Srila Baswami calls, the culture of respect. You create something. It's necessary for creating the proper atmosphere for everybody to flourish. And when one comes into that atmosphere, you start to experience something that is just not part of the material world. So it's important for us, for each one of us, to embrace that culture and encourage it, almost like protect it. And so it is important for each one of us to almost to encourage or to contribute to create that atmosphere. And sometimes it means instructing. Sometimes it may mean to taking a stand or to expressing this type of thing. I think the important part is that we have to constantly be reviewing our motivation. And so if my motivation expands from or is mixed with any amount of, you know, the the need that I have to 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 be recognized or acknowledged or respected, type of thing, then any amount of that sort of disturbs, in one sense, the motivation, the pure motivation. So, the thing, amane na, manane na. So that is, you're ready to offer all respect to others and don't expect respect towards yourself. It comes in that type of package. So it's not an easy thing, but it's something that we cultivate. And we have the duty as servants of the deities to create that atmosphere here in the temple. But at the same time, like that question that I asked His Holiness Robert Swami, that how we create that atmosphere in the temple of respect, when he was speaking, remember? And he said three things. I can't remember the first one. Was he saying one? It was modeling. You have to model, that quality. So you have to model being respectful, and you have to have the leadership. It takes leadership to make it a priority. To make that one of the prime goals of of, of, of a community, that it did that, to establish a culture of respect. Can't remember the first one. You remember the first one? No. Yeah, there were three things that he said. I have to review that, but I remember those. One of them was modeling. You have to model that, show example. So it's an ongoing thing, like that. Grantara Sriman Bhagavatam ki jai.